Hello everyone. I'm sorry I can't be at the module fair this afternoon, but hopefully this vodcast will give you some more information about PY3134 or 5PV as some people call it, and answer any questions that you might have. PY3134 is broken into three main sections over the course of the semester. It's going to run in semester B next year, and we spend a lot of the first part of the module looking at issues surrounding the psychology of politics and politicians. So how politicians perhaps manipulate emotional and cognitive decision making in voters, persuade you to vote for them, the psychology of voting systems and political leadership. We look at how the media interacts with that and broaden the discussion about the media and the psychology of the media and its influence in society. We then move on to issues of the psychology of prejudice and discrimination. We look at the psychology behind hate groups, people like Combat 18 and the English Defence League, and we do a couple of sessions looking at hate groups and how they recruit, how they keep their members within the group, and begin to change the psychology of the individual within that group. We also look at the responsibility of the discipline of psychology historically and have a look at some of the perhaps uses and abuses of psychology over time. As we move into the second part of the assessment of the module, we start to move into looking at political violence and terrorism. So we look at genocide and have a number of guest speakers who come in to talk to us about their experiences of working with genocide survivors and in fact their own experience of genocide, at least in one particular case where we speak to, or we have a talk from a survivor of the Holocaust who comes to speak to us about their experiences in a concentration camp. And we think about the psychological understandings of the abuses of power and violence within society and humanity in general. That leads us into discussions of political violence and terrorism, and we have a number of lectures looking at the kind of intrapersonal or intrapsychic aspects of political violence and terrorism, but also the interpersonal and social, cultural and environmental underpinnings of psychological explanations of terrorism. We also focus on post-traumatic stress and the psychological impact of terrorism as well. Now, students often want to know how the module is assessed. There is no end of semester exam as such. We break the assessment into two components, the first of which is multiple choice assessments, but they are done throughout the course of the semester. We found that this is a good way of assessing, but also doesn't overload students in terms of the requirement of the amount of information that they need to take on board, and they perform better in these kinds of assessments. So we have 3 weeks of teaching, and then you'll do an MCQ quiz in the class, then another 3 weeks and a quiz, and then a final 3 weeks and a quiz. And that's 60 questions in total, 20 for each quiz, and that gives a 60% breakdown for that component. The second component is a group presentation where students are requested to select an incident of political violence or terrorism and then present a psychosocial analysis of that incident. We have workshops within the module as well to assist with that particular component. Now, in terms of the learning experience, the activities that we engage in throughout the teaching of the module, there are your kind of typical lectures. Each lecture session is broken into two parts, so there'll always be two different activities within the session. We have lectures and invited speakers, as I've already said. We always make sure there is a field trip to either the Imperial War Museum or the Houses of Parliament. In recent times, we've also made use of the Going Global Bursary, and a number of 3134 students have been to places like Sarajevo and places which have recently been affected by war. We also use film screenings as well to broaden the discussions, give content which is an opportunity to think about the theory that we've been learning about in lectures and apply it to different forms of media. And finally, as part of the development of the module and support of students in assessment over time, we also have what we call living room tutorials. Living room because they are tutorials which students can engage with or take part in from home, perhaps on a day or an evening when they are not at UEL on campus. So we use Second Life, for example, or last semester we used a Vitero software whereby students can engage in the tutorial by going online at home. If you have a look at this image here, you can see all the way around the outside of the PowerPoint presentation. These are all students sat engaged in the tutorial with myself at the top. So from the comfort of the living room sofa, you can have a discussion with myself and other students whilst we run through and revise the material prior to an assessment. And through these sorts of tutorials, apart from obviously students preferring to engage with them by not coming in on a day when they might not otherwise need to, we found that that this kind of engagement has really profited students in terms of the assessment performance, and that's really seen through the stats as well. We now have a mean module mark up now to an average of a 2-1. It's a high performing module in terms of good degrees, so you can see the number of 2-1s has increased from 2010-11 through to the this year's performance, where we now have about 36%, 1 in 3 students getting a 2-1, a further 1 in 3 getting a first. So the stats are good. It's a demanding module, requires a lot of reading, but for those students who do engage with that reading material, it's possible to do very well with the assessment. I hope that's answered some of the questions you might have about the module. I think, of course, I think it's a good module. It's improving all the time. It's very much a kind of collaborative project where we listen to the students carefully and work with them to improve it all the time. That's, apart from anything else, that's benefited the assessment and students' performance in that. And I guess it's, with that in mind, probably better not to take it from me, but to have a think about what students' experience has been. So I will leave you with a couple of quotes from module feedback over the last 6 months, and hopefully this might have triggered an interest. Lots of students report that this module creates an interest in politics, which they didn't think would be possible. It really is a fascinating area, and hopefully you'll be persuaded of that by doing PY3134 next year. I look forward to meeting you in Semester B if you take the module. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you soon.